Hi and welcome to this week's WoW Flash, and we were surprised, not surprised with the patch coming out this week. Many things were pointing to it coming out this week, but the one big thing that wasn't was the fact that it wasn't being announced. There was nothing on the download, there was nothing at all from that point of view, which was very, very weird. So I think it's the first time that a patch where there has actually been content hasn't been given very much notice. Well, a day before is not really what I call notice. And it didn't go very well, did it? It went quite badly. For North America, it took a long time for the servers to come back up, and I sort of thought, thinking, well, that's fine. The North America patch release is always the beta for Europe, and we're usually getting it sort of fine. Not so fine. Went into the raid. Virtually no FPS, doing a boss, and it was like watching a slideshow of it. Now, there were others that had this problem as well. There is a sort of fix. It's not brilliant. But it went from me it being completely unplayable, I cannot do this, to I was actually able to raid and do some mythic bosses. Not brilliantly, but it was good enough. It was okay. It was okay. And what you basically need to do for this is in your BattleNet, you need to click on set. You bring the drop down menu on the top left hand corner and you click on settings, and then from there you need to go into game settings, tick the box you'll see with your list of games, World of Warcraft, tick the box that says additional command line arguments, and then you type in like negative no sound, all one term, and press done. When you'll need to have exited out of the game. When you go back into the game, the first thing you'll notice is an error message comes up, even on the login screen. Well, that can't be helped. This is part of the fix. And then you just log in as normal. You will have no sound. This is not a case of just disabling the sound, by the way. You can't just do Control and S to sort this out, because the sound is still there. The issue seems to be that an awful lot of the FPS problems are to do with some, I don't know whether it's sound files or anything like that. I'm not technical in this. But so you need to basically get rid of sound from the game. Now, if, like me, you're someone who uses sound for prompts, like with weak auras and other, boss mods, bit of a problem. It's a bit of a unique experience for me personally. I know there are some people who play without game sounds anyway, in which case you'll not notice any difference. I play with all of them, and it was a big difference. So that, for me, was a bit of a handicap. But at least it went from being unplayable, to playable. Now, hopefully Blizzard will sort this out quite quickly. Hopefully this fix will only be needed for a short time. So, in terms of other things that have been done, obviously we've got our extra 4 bag slots if you've hooked your account up to an authenticator. So that's pretty decent as well. The zone scaling came at a, it's not, the zone scaling is really good. The fact that we've got zone scaling now is ideal. From my point of view, I was talking about this on the stream last night, the video of which the Azeroth review is on YouTube, so you can check that out if you want more details on that. My view is that they could have taken the opportunity to improve the leveling experience. Now, it has improved it a bit, but in some ways it's gone a bit the other way. So, for example, what they've done is increase the health of mobs. So they don't want mobs dying too quickly. Fair enough. The issue is that they've increased the health of mobs without increasing the danger of mobs, in other words, the damage they do to you, which means you're still in a situation where you can go in and grab a whole group of mobs. I would have preferred it if they'd have kept the health the same and increase the damage they do, so you would at least think twice before running into a whole group of them, because that's one of the things that people do notice as not necessarily being the best thing, when you consider your solo stuff from comparing vanilla to now. In vanilla you had to treat mobs with extreme caution. You didn't run into a group on your own. If you had a group of your own, of players, okay, but you didn't just go run into a group like that. We've got a whole, you can look at the patch notes. I'm going to link the patch notes down below. I'm just going to read through all that as well. We've also got raid bosses have had their health increase as well. This does mean that there's a couple of raid bosses have been noted that used to be soloable and now aren't. Raden, Shah of Pride from Mr. Pandaria don't really appear to be soloable anymore. Bit of a disappointment, that one. And because there are various features of this patch which, very nice features, on balance, definitely a big thumbs up. But for transmog hunters, there's a few kicks in the teeth, and that's another one of them. In fact, you won't be able to solo those bosses. A little bit disappointed there. In terms of what may be coming, because effectively now this is it for 2018 in terms of what we know. Obviously, it's not it for 2018. Blizzard aren't going to do that. Now, there's been some apparently cryptic messages or lore, you know, tweeting dates, including next Thursday. That doesn't seem a surprise to me at all. I was saying already before with the patch, as soon as the patch comes out, I would expect them to schedule a live Q&A, as Ian Hazakostas and some other devs sometimes do. And in fact, usually do when a patch has just come out. So and they tend to do that on Thursdays. So I would not be surprised at all if officially they didn't say next Thursday there's going to be a live Q&A that they're going to be running. Post your questions here. I would expect 3 things to be covered in that live Q&A. The first of which, of course, they're going to want to talk about patch 7.3.5. They are going to have to cover the question of what maybe went wrong. You know, it is a bit disappointed. We have a patch that we knew was coming, and although in the back of your head you sort of thought, well, it's possible to come out this week, I certainly didn't think so, just because there was no announcement. But you see, you get a patch with no announcement, and it actually doesn't, the patch didn't go very well. That's a bit of a negative. Not a great start to 2018 there, but I would also expect them to talk about what else is coming in 2018 in terms of Legion, because we now don't know. We're at the end of it. It's like there's got to be some stuff. We just don't know what it is. And then I would also expect them to talk about BFA, Battle for Azeroth. Hints. There's always hints. There is a serious hint, but there's been serious hints about things in the past that have not panned out. There is a serious hint that the alpha stroke beta, whatever you want to call it, is going to open up next week, and the first wave of people who usually are the big streamers, you know, they're usually the first people to get into that, are likely to be getting their keys next week. Earlier next week rather than later, so potentially even Monday. So they're likely, if that's the case, to talk about that as well. And if it isn't the case that it's next week, I would still expect them to talk about when the beta or stroke alpha, whatever they call it, is going to go live as well. So yeah, I've put the link in the description below to the patch notes. The patch notes aren't complete, really. There are a few things they haven't mentioned, but I think I've talked about some of the real points of interest. The last thing I probably should say, just in case anyone doesn't know, the allied races, the infrastructure for 4 of the allied races in. Those 4 are the Lightforged Draenei, the High Mountain Tauren, the Nightborn, and the Void Elves. Remember, those were the 4 that were dataman before BlizzCon, so we sort of knew that something like that was coming in because, you know, sneaky people found stuff. So they've been seeding this into the game files for a little while, and there's been some more stuff added here. But they're not active yet, of course, and it's believed, apart from the fact you need certain achievements and rep to access each of those allied races, that you are going to need to pre-order Battle for Azeroth. And of course, the pre-order for Battle for Azeroth isn't available yet. I wouldn't have thought it was too soon either. I wouldn't have thought it was going to be that soon before we get that. But nonetheless, that's what it's likely to be, what it seems to be tied to anyway. And that leaves the other 2 allied races. Obviously, Zandalari Trolls can't really be a thing until BFA launches, because that's when we go to Zandalar. Doesn't make a great deal of sense to be having Zandalari Trolls in the game before we go to Zandalar. But that also leaves Dark Iron Dwarves. Now, you could argue, well, Dark Iron Dwarves are in the game now. I strongly suspect they've been left out of this, able to use them at the same time as the first 4, just because it wouldn't be very fair if Alliance could use 3 and Horde could only use 2. So I think that's why that is. And I think the reason they chose Dark Iron Dwarves to be the last ones to bring out was simply because the Lightforged Draenei and the Void Elves are very much of the now. You know, they've very much had their story in Legion. Dark Iron Dwarves have been in the game since day dot, so it's not as big a deal to leave those for an extra little while and be brought out at the same time as Underline Trolls, which I'm going to guess coincides with when Battle for Azeroth comes out. So I think that's the news for this week. There's bound to be a little flurry. I mean, there's been no news for the last month, and then all of a sudden I think there might be a flurry of news items every day or two for the next week or so, but we will see. We'll see what next week brings. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. And if you enjoy discussing any of these topics, don't forget to tune in to the Azeroth review, which is most Tuesday evenings. It is almost always on a Tuesday evening at 7 PM UK time. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and until next time, see you later.